Hi guys, today's video is going to be on traditional stick grip, and I'm doing this because I had a request for it specifically from a viewer who is a subscriber and a frequent commenter, and so I thought, I'll throw him a bone and I'll go ahead and explain what I do to play traditional grip. Full disclosure, I don't typically play traditional grip when I'm playing drum set. I don't typically use it if I'm playing in a concert band or orchestral type setting. But I do use it sometimes to practice rudiments, and I do teach it to people on occasion in my private lessons. So you're just going to see what I know about traditional grip today. So I'm going to bring the camera in a little closer so this will be easier to see. Okay, when I learned to play in 1996, I learned matched grip. I didn't switch to traditional grip, and by switch I mean incorporate into my otherwise large repertoire of techniques, until maybe 2010 or 2011 when I started teaching, because I figured, I probably need to know how to do it in order to teach it. And you can't really be a well-rounded drum teacher if you can't teach all the relevant techniques to at least some degree. I am not a master traditional grip player, I will say that now. So, when you're playing traditional grip, the first thing to know is that you're going to grip the stick in the same place that you would grip it for matched grip, about 2/3 of the way down. But instead of putting your thumb and forefinger at that point, you're going to place your thumb and palm down here in the crook at that point. So it's going to look like you've choked up quite a bit when you put your fingers on it, but you haven't really, because your fulcrum, which is primarily your thumb and, between your thumb and your palm, is going to be at the normal fulcrum point. And when you play a stroke, which you can do without any fingers at all, you're going to use the rotation of your radius around your ulna, this doorknob opening forearm motion, to rotate the stick towards the drum head and to, of course, allow for rebound off the drum head. So the fingers are really only there to control the stick from moving around, because without it, it's pretty floppy in here. So, of course, A, we want to control it from getting crazy. B, the underneath fingers, as you typically put 2 fingers below and 2 fingers above the stick, the underneath fingers are to help lift the stick up on rebounds and make sure that it's not lagging behind. And the over top fingers are typically to provide down pressure, extra down pressure, that your thumb possibly can't or would be inconvenienced by providing for things like double strokes and rolls and what have you. So you could, of course, play everything you need to play without the fingers, but they do help quite a bit for a variety of things. Now, when you are playing standard strokes, like just normal taps, your fingers really should not be doing a whole lot. If you are overly involved with the fingers, you could actually be impeding rebound and be playing a little bit of dead strokes, and that's not good. You want to have them loosely open. Of course, I did a video on a bunch of different grips, and in that video I showed a whole bunch of different left-hand grips, but I'm basically just showing you the one that I think is most practical for me. So I typically put my thumb in a fairly neutral position, where it is not straight out, it is not back in the Alan Dawson position, it is not forward in what I see a lot of like drum corps guys doing, and it is definitely not draped over the top in a Scotch manner. It's just sort of neutrally hanging out in a comfortable sort of non-tension angle that it would normally be in if I didn't have the stick in my hand. Okay? Then I like to keep the stick somewhere around my first knuckle on my ring finger, somewhere between the knuckle and the cuticle, let's say. And then I like to mostly only use down pressure on my index finger. So if I were to get a double stroke or a buzz and need extra down pressure, I would provide that with my index finger. So in this case, my middle finger is really just preventing the stick from swinging forward, and my pinky is doing, I'm going to say, absolutely nothing. I can't even think of a reason that my pinky exists right now. It just happens to be there. Okay, so really this is like a 4-fingered grip. Only 3 fingers are really doing anything important, and really your thumb is still the most important finger. Now, some nuances of the traditional grip left hand. you can actually do finger strokes a couple of different ways from this position. Of course, your normal stroke is going to be that wrist rotation stroke, but you can actually use your thumb to play strokes, which is sort of a more Scotch style technique. No fingers, and I'm not really doing any wrist. It's all just my thumb. You can also use your index and middle fingers to some extent. I use mostly my index finger, like I said. You can play finger strokes that way. So in a similar way to like push-pull strokes here on the right hand, you can do push-pull strokes a couple of different ways on the left hand, utilizing your thumb and fingers to propel the stick down after a normal wrist rotation stroke. Now, some factors to avoid when playing traditional grip is trying to use too much forearm in this direction. Playing like this really doesn't create a lot of power, nor does it allow for a lot of rebound, and is really not that helpful. Whereas this, of course, is much better. Now, you can combine those two motions to get a little extra height, because my forearm won't rotate out any farther than this. If I need the stick to go straight up, I have to move my forearm up and back a little bit in order to really crank that stick around. So that's okay, but you don't want to be just playing from the elbow. And you also really don't want to be playing from the wrist in this direction. You would think from right-handed or matched grip playing from the wrist in an up and down motion would be good. It really doesn't do much for you here in this position. Your wrist is much stronger going downward this way than it is going upward this way, and that's sort of the direction you're going here. So again, you want to avoid the elbow motion, you want to avoid this wrist motion, and you want to concentrate on the rotational motion. Finally here, I'll just talk about a couple of variations in the grip that I think are semi-interesting to know about, even though I typically do the one I have been showing this whole time. You can play traditional grip in an ancient style, where you actually grip the stick a lot with your pinky and provide down pressure with this part of your hand and index finger. And then you use more of this same wrist rolling motion to play. This is how Swiss drummers play. This is how ancient American drummers actually played as well. The Moeller book talks about this kind of a thing. And the combination for that is a very thumb-centric, sort of Scottish style grip, where your index and middle fingers really don't provide a lot of down pressure. They're not super curled over the stick. They mostly just provide lateral support, and most everything comes from the thumb. It's a really neutral and relaxed grip. And it looks very weird to a modern player. Of course, you can go to a more core style grip where you are playing a very modern, normal looking right hand, and a lot of the time the thumb and the index finger here meet or even cross over to provide a ton of down pressure for a drum that bounces incredibly a lot, a really high tension Kevlar head. Then of course there's more of a jazz style grip where you're going to have your thumb on top on this hand for ride cymbal playing, and typically for comping, jazz players will sometimes put their hands more like this. They'll turn their traditional grip over and they will play in a manner a little bit like this with their fingers, which is nothing like what I've shown you. This doesn't work at very loud, dynamic levels. If you actually wanted to play something loud and intensive, you would then shift back into what is more of a normal traditional grip. But for quiet jazz comping, you will actually see people playing a little bit like this sometimes rather than like this. So I hope that was somewhat helpful, giving you an overview of some things you might need to know to start playing in traditional grip, to fix some problems you might have with your traditional grip, or to dissuade you from dealing with the hassle of traditional grip at all. Any way it shakes out, it's good for me. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.